Hello, boys and girls. It's Miss Alpine again, and I'm here to do another writing mini lesson with you. And today's lesson, we are going to continue with looking at the 6 traits of writing, but today we're going to be focusing on the trait of organization. So remember, when we talk about what good writers are, all good writers have to include these 6 traits: trait of idea, organization, voice, word choice, sentence fluency, and conventions. Yesterday, we talked about the trait of ideas. Today, we're going to look at the trait of organization. Now, when you look at this icon, the organization looks like a train, and there's a reason for that. All trains have to have an engine. Usually, they're carrying something in the middle, that's the cargo, and then they have the caboose. And this kind of reminds us in an organization, just like a train, there's pieces to writing. And most times, we're going to have a beginning, middle, and end when we're talking about a story, or we're going to have like an introduction, the body, and conclusion when we get into doing our persuasive writing and informational writing. But every piece of writing that we do has to have organization. So, what does organization mean when we talk about writing? Well, like I said, it really talks about how we're organizing our writing and our thoughts. One way that's really going to help us with our organization is to make sure that we're doing some pre writing. Now, later we're going to be talking about all the steps to writing and how we go from pre writing into our final published work. But you can't just get down a piece of paper and start writing something and think it's going to be really well organized. We have to do a little bit of pre writing to generate those thoughts and then start putting those in order. Also, we need to make sure we continue to stay on topic. Now, we talked about this yesterday when we talked about the trait of ideas, that when you're writing, you want to make sure you stick with one topic. That also helps us when it comes to organization, because if you're telling me a story about going to the beach, and then all of a sudden you also tell me about this other time that you went to the mountains and it was too cold, so you'd rather be at the beach, it kind of doesn't make sense. And then it really throws the reader off to understand how you're trying to organize this. So staying on topic really does help with organization. Now, this is huge, especially when we get into narrative writing. Do you have a beginning, middle, and end? Sometimes when I see my students and they do their narrative writings, they kind of get right into the middle of a story. And I'm like, whoa, back it up. Who are your characters? Where are they? How did this actually begin? How did they get to where they are? And they left out so much of that beginning that I was really confused as a reader. And then also sometimes they kind of miss the end. They kind of explained what happened with the plot, but then didn't really give me a solution to what happened after that. And so this is one thing that really becomes huge, especially when we start talking about narratives, that we need to have a clear beginning, middle, and end. And then also, under the trait of organization, we want to make sure that our ideas are organized in an order that really makes sense. So later, when we start talking about informational writing or opinion or persuasive writing, we need to think like, what would make sense to the readers? How would I organize this so that it's really logical and it flows? So you're not kind of all over the place and going back and forth. All right, just like yesterday, I wanted to show you an example of organization in a published piece of writing. Now, this is one of my favorite stories because not only is it fun and talks about roller coasters, one of my favorite things, but we're also going to be talking about this later in science too. And so we might come back to this story. But let's take a look and see how this story called Roller Coasters is organized. Oh, sorry, let me go back.
Roller Coaster, written by Marla Frazee. All of these people are waiting in line for the roller coaster. Most of them have ridden on lots of roller coasters. Some of them have only ridden on a roller coaster once or twice. At least one of them has never ridden on a roller coaster before, ever. The roller coaster is very big and very noisy. You must be tall enough to ride it, but sometimes even those who are tall enough decide they don't want to. Lots of people change their minds about riding the roller coaster at the very last minute. Finally, it is time to get into the cars. The ride operator says, "Load 'em up, 2 to a seat." When everyone is buckled in, the operator rings a bell, and then he releases the brake. The train jerks forward on the tracks. Now it is too late for anyone to change their mind. Slowly the train is pulled up the hill by a chain. Clickety clackety, clickety clackety, up, up, up. And then whoosh! Most people scream, some people can't make a sound, and one person can't even open her eyes. The train zips. It zooms. It dips and dives. And goes all the way around. Whee! Now the ride is over. Most of these people are dizzy. Some of them have wobbly knees, but at least one of them is planning to ride the roller coaster again. Right now.
Okay, so let's take a look and reflect on the roller coaster book that we just listened to and watched. Now, did the author stay on topic? Yeah, the author just talked about that roller coaster ride and not how the roller coaster ride changed over years or people's different experiences. It just talked about that one ride and they stayed on topic. Did it have a clear beginning, middle, and end? Absolutely. It started with everyone waiting in line. Then they got on the ride. They rode the ride, and it even talked about, oh, the language was great. It gave us a really good description of how they were riding and how it felt and what it did. And then all of a sudden, it came to an end, and the ride was over. But remember, one person was ready to go again. So that was definitely a clear beginning, middle, and end. Did it put the ideas in order? That makes sense. Sure did, especially having that clear beginning, middle, and end. So today, for your Google Classroom writing assignment, I want you to think about the trait of idea when you do your writing. And I want you to write about how you get ready in the morning. Now, normally we'd be getting ready for school, but I know now it's a little bit different. But I still want you to think, what is your process of how you get up and get ready before your Google meetings in the morning? I added some additional tips to help you. So if we look at the actual assignment, it says make sure to stay on topic. Only talk about what you do when you're getting ready in the morning. Put your ideas in an order that makes sense. Now, don't forget, we're not going to not do what we learned yesterday with the trait of ideas. We want to make sure that we stay with the trait of ideas and include organization. So we want to continue to include those close-up details. And of course, we need to have a beginning, middle, and end. How does your day start? all the way to the end when we start our Google meeting. And what are all the steps and the details between that? And again, just like yesterday, don't forget, I don't want a list here, and your teacher doesn't want a list of things. We want you to write this in complete sentences in a way that the sentences flow and all go together, okay? So this is it for today. Let's go be writers.